Unlocking Prosperity, How Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Impacts You. Imagine a country where tax policies are designed to boost local economies, support everyday workers, and invest in the future of families. That's the vision behind President Donald Trump's landmark legislation, the One Big Beautiful Bill, OB3, which is already reshaping lives from coast to coast. But here's where it gets controversial. While supporters call it a win for working Americans, critics argue it disproportionately benefits the wealthy. Let's break down the real-world impacts and the debates it's sparking. Small businesses, a breath of fresh air. For local entrepreneurs, the no tax on tips provision is a game changer. In Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Crystal Blinn, owner of a popular bowling alley, explains how this change helps her compete with larger corporations. Higher take-home pay for employees means more money circulating in our community, she says. Cora Kruger, a manager at a Riverside restaurant, adds that the stability of untaxed tips eases year-end financial stress. But does this policy truly level the playing field, or does it create new challenges for small businesses? Share your thoughts below. Seniors, a tax break for golden years. Retirees in Elmira, New York are celebrating a $6,000 tax deduction for individuals over 65, $12,000 for couples. This relief, embedded in the OB3, aims to ease the financial burden on older Americans. Yet, some question whether such deductions should be extended to younger generations facing rising living costs. What do you think? Is this a fair way to support seniors, or should the focus shift to broader economic reforms? Families, a baby bonus for the future. New parents in Minnesota are getting a $1,000 federal deposit for each newborn, a one-time baby bonus designed to kickstart children's savings. While this initiative is hailed as a win for families, critics argue it's a drop in the bucket compared to the rising costs of childcare and education. Could this be a model for future policies, or is it just a symbolic gesture? Startups and innovation, a boost for entrepreneurs. In Charlotte, North Carolina, startup employees are rejoicing over expanded qualified small business stock QSBS benefits. The law now allows investors to exclude up to $15 million in gains from taxes, a massive incentive for innovation. However, skeptics warn that such perks might favor well-funded ventures over grassroots startups. Is this a smart investment in the economy, or does it risk widening the gap between big and small businesses? Border security and defense, a divisive priority. Ohio's Anduril Industries, a defense contractor, is set to benefit from billions in border security funding under the OB3. While supporters praise the move as a step toward national security, opponents argue the money could be better spent on domestic programs. Where do you stand on this debate? Should border security take precedence over other fiscal priorities? Energy and environment, a balancing act. Alaska's lawmakers highlight the bill's support for domestic energy production and Arctic policy, emphasizing compliance with environmental regulations. Yet, environmental advocates remain wary of increased fossil fuel development. Can economic growth and sustainability coexist, or is this a false promise? Tax cuts and deductions. Winners and losers. The OB3 raises the SALT deduction cap to $40,000 for high-tax states like New York and California, a relief for homeowners. However, the phase-out for high earners, $500,000 plus income, has sparked criticism. Is this a fair compromise, or does it leave middle-class families behind? Healthcare and education. Modernizing benefits. New provisions allow HSAs to cover direct primary care memberships and expand 529 plan flexibility for education savings. While these changes are praised for empowering families, some argue they don't go far enough to address rising healthcare and tuition costs. What reforms would you prioritize? Agriculture. Stability for farmers. Arkansas rice growers and North Dakota farmers are seeing updated reference prices and improved crop insurance under the OB3. Yet with global markets in flux, Many wonder if these adjustments are enough to protect rural livelihoods. Should the government do more to shield farmers from economic volatility? The bigger picture: fiscal responsibility or political victory. Senators like Marsha Blackburn and Katie Britt tout the bill as a fiscal triumph, slashing Green New Deal spending and reducing deficits. But with $4.5 trillion in projected savings over a decade, is this a sustainable path forward or a temporary fix? Final thoughts. A nation divided. The big, beautiful bill is a mosaic of policies. Some celebrated, others contested, as Americans across the country experience its effects. The debate over its true impact will only intensify. Do you believe this legislation sets the stage for long-term prosperity, or is it a short-term political win? Share your perspective in the comments, and let's keep the conversation going. The SALT tax deduction increased to $40,000. Should you claim it? Imagine paying tens of thousands of dollars in state and local taxes, only to have a significant portion of that amount capped at $10,000 when it comes to deducting it from your federal income tax. This harsh reality has been the case for many taxpayers over the past 7 years, but a recent change in the tax code has quadrupled the cap to $40,000. But here's where it gets controversial. Should you take advantage of this increased deduction, and what does it mean for your overall tax situation? To understand the implications, let's dive into the world of the SALT income tax deduction and explore what you need to know. The SALT deduction has been around for over a century, allowing taxpayers to deduct state and local taxes from their federal income tax. Initially, there was no cap on this deduction, but in 2017, the Trump administration imposed a $10,000 limit as part of a larger tax cut plan. This move was met with opposition from lawmakers in blue states, where taxpayers often pay higher state and local taxes. Fast forward to the present, and the current tax and spending bill has increased the SALT deduction cap to $40,000. But who qualifies for this deduction? And how does it work? The answer lies in understanding the difference between the standard deduction and itemized deductions. All taxpayers who pay state and local taxes can take the SALT deduction, but it only makes sense for those who are relatively well off. To take advantage of the SALT deduction, you must itemize your deductions, which means you'll need to calculate whether the total amount of your itemized deductions exceeds the standard deduction. The standard deduction is a lump sum deduction set by Congress, and it's been increased significantly over the years. In fact, the standard deduction was almost doubled under the first Trump administration's tax cut, and it's been increased again in the latest tax bill. So why would you choose to itemize your deductions instead of taking the standard deduction? The answer is that itemizing can be beneficial if you have a lot of deductions, such as mortgage interest, charitable contributions, and out-of-pocket medical expenses. However, if your itemized deductions are less than the standard deduction, it's usually better to take the standard deduction. Now, let's talk about the politics behind the SALT deduction. The 2017 tax cut, which imposed the $10,000 cap, was seen as a way to pay for the larger tax cuts. However, the latest increase in the SALT deduction cap is largely seen as a political move to keep Republican Congress members on board with the tax bill. The increase in the SALT deduction cap is set to phase out for individual and joint taxpayers with very high incomes, and it will increase by $1,000 each year through 2029 before reverting back to $10,000 in 2030. So, what does this mean for you? If you're a taxpayer who pays significant state and local taxes, you may be able to take advantage of the increased SALT deduction. However, it's essential to understand the implications of itemizing your deductions and how it may affect your overall tax situation. And this is the part most people miss. The SALT deduction is just one piece of the larger tax puzzle. To truly understand how the tax code affects you need to consider all the deductions and credits available to you. As we move forward, it will be interesting to see how the increased SALT deduction cap plays out in the midterm elections. Will it be a boon? The debate is sure to continue, and we want to hear from you. Do you think the increased SALT deduction cap is a good thing, or do you think it's a mistake? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Got a problem? Send your consumer issue to sean.murphy@globe.com. Follow him at @SPMurphyBoston. Avoid the 45.5% SALT torpedo. Tax strategies for high earners. High earners beware. President Donald Trump's new tax legislation could unleash what experts are calling a SALT torpedo, drastically increasing your federal tax rate if your income lands in a specific range. But here's where it gets controversial. This tax trap catches people earning between $500,000 and $600,000 of modified adjusted gross income, MAGI, hitting them with an effective federal tax rate of 45.5%. And this is the part most people miss. It's not just the new $40,000 cap on state and local tax SALT deductions causing harm. It's how that cap phases out over that income range that creates an unnervingly high tax burden. Let's break down what's going on. Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill temporarily increases the SALT deduction limit from the previous $10,000 to $40,000 starting in 2025, with a small annual bump of 1% until 2029 before reverting to $10,000. However, once your MAGI exceeds $500,000, this $40,000 deduction starts to shrink until it's back to $10,000 at $600,000. This sliding scale results in a stealthy tax penalty between those earnings thresholds that can dramatically increase your tax rate. Certified financial planner Jim Guarino from Baker Newman Noyes advises that anyone earning in that bracket should engage their tax and investment advisors to navigate this tricky situation. This isn't just a minor adjustment. It affects how you strategize your earnings and tax planning for the year. So, what's the best way to sidestep this tax hit? Experts suggest a few tactics. 1. Control unexpected taxable income before year-end. For instance, opting for exchange. But be cautious. You'll want to assess capital gains taxes and other consequences when switching investments. 2. Utilize tax breaks aggressively to keep income below the trigger point. Switching from Roth to pre-tax 401k contributions can reduce your taxable income, lowering your MAGI beneath $500,000, thus avoiding the steep phase-out. While pre-tax contributions mean taxed withdrawals later, the immediate benefit in this income range can be quite valuable. 3. Avoid transactions that significantly increase your income, such as selling investments or your home at a large profit. While capital gains on home sales might sometimes be tax-exempt, generating a big gain could push you into the SALT phase-out range, resulting in higher taxes on all of your income. Similarly, be cautious with Roth IRA conversions, which can boost your taxable income upfront, despite offering future tax-free growth. But here's a critical point, and it might spark some debate. Tax strategies must never be executed in isolation. You never want to do anything in a silo, Guarino emphasizes. Every move should be part of your broader financial plan, considering multi-year tax projections and other key legislative changes. That means a piecemeal approach could backfire if you miss interconnected effects. The SALT torpedo, under this new legislation, presents a complex challenge for high-income earners. Do you agree this creates unfair tax cliff effects, or is it a warranted measure to balance tax deductions? Share your thoughts. How would you approach managing this tax trap? The discussion is wide open, and your insights could help others navigate this intricate landscape.